Hi sir, corrosion is a natural process that converts a refined metal into a more chemically stable form such as oxide, hydroxide, or sulfide. It is a gradual destruction of material, usually a metal, by chemical and or electrochemical reaction with their environment. Corrosion engineering is the field dedicated to controlling and preventing corrosion. Galvanic corrosion. Galvanic corrosion occurs when two different metals have physical or electrical contact with each other and are immersed in a common electrolyte, or when the same metal is exposed to electrolyte with different concentration. In a galvanic couple, the more active metal, the anode, corrodes at an accelerated rate, and the more noble metal, the cathode, corrodes at slower rate. Zinc is often used as sacrificial asphalt for steel structures. Galvanic corrosion is a major interest in the marine industry and also anywhere water containing salts, contact pipes, or metal structure. Pitting corrosion. Pitting corrosion is a localized form of corrosion by which cavities or holes are produced in the material. Pitting is considered to be more dangerous than uniform corrosion damage because it is more difficult to detect and predict. What causes pitting corrosion? Pitting corrosion is caused by environment that may contain aggressive chemical species such as chloride. Chloride is particularly damaging to the passive film oxide, so pitting can initiate at oxide break. Crevice corrosion. Crevice corrosion refers to the localized attack on a metal surface at or immediately adjacent to the gap or crevice between two joining surfaces. The gap or crevice can be formed between two metals or a metal and non-metallic material. Outside the gap or without the gap, both metals are resistant to corrosion. High temperature corrosion. High temperature corrosion is a chemical deterioration of a material, typically a metal, as a result of heating. This non-galvanic form of corrosion can occur when a metal is subjected to a hot atmosphere containing oxygen, sulfur, or other compounds capable of oxidizing for assisting the oxidation of the material concerned. Microbial corrosion. Microbial corrosion, or commonly known as microbiologically influenced corrosion, MIC, is a corrosion caused or promoted by microorganisms, usually chemototrophs. It can apply to both metallic and non-metallic materials in the presence or absence of oxygen. Accelerated low water corrosion is a particularly aggressive form of MIC that affects steel piles in seawater near the low water tide mark. It is characterized by an orange sludge which smells of hydrogen sulfide when treated with acid. Metal dusting is a catastrophic form of corrosion that occurs when susceptible materials are exposed to environments with high carbon activities. The corrosion manifests itself as a breakup of bulk metal to metal powder. The suspected mechanism is firstly the deposition of graphite layer on the surface of the metal, usually from carbon monoxide in the vapor phase. Protection from corrosion. Protection from corrosion. Various treatments are used to slow corrosion damage to metallic objects which are exposed to the weather, salt water, acid, or other hostile environment. Some unprotected metallic alloys are extremely vulnerable to corrosion, such as used in niobium magnets, which can scramble into powder even in dry. Temperature-stable indoor environments are less properly treated to discourage corrosion. Surface treatment. Surface treatments. When surface treatments are used to retard corrosion, great care must be taken to ensure complete coverage, without gaps, cracks, or pinhole defects. Some defects can act as an Achilles heel, allowing corrosion to penetrate the interior and causing extensive damage even while the outer protective layer remains apparently intact for a period of time. Applied coatings. Plating, painting, and application of enamel are the most common anti-corrosion treatments. They work by providing a barrier of corrosion-resistant material between the damaging environment. Corroding steel gantry on an electrified railway lane. Corroding steel gantry on an electrified railway lane. Painting either by a roller or brush is more desirable for tight spaces. Spray would be better for larger coating areas such as steel decks and waterfront application. Nowadays, organic coating made using petroleum-based polymer are being replaced with many renewable source-based organic coatings. Among various vehicles or vendors, polychains are the most explored polymer in such attempt.
Two ships, corrosion.
Are built of steel, which in a marine environment exposed to water, both fresh and sea, and air is prone to the formation of rust. Contributing factors that accelerate the rate of corrosion include
Cargo damage.
onto the tank tops. The heavy impact of this cargo on the tank top causes damage and breakdown of the coatings on the ceiling of the double bottom tank underneath.
Corrosive cargoes.
A number of bulk cargoes contain chemicals of a corrosive nature, and this is particularly the case in newly mined coal. It is essential that the data sheet is inspected prior to loading the cargo. For example, in case of high sulfur contact coal cargoes, severe pitting can result. To counter this, the hold floor can be coated in lime, but this does not protect the bilges or bilge line.
Equipment damage.
Grab damage to the hold floor. Frames and ladders can occur at most discharge ports. This not only causes materials damage to the ship's structure, but can also break down the paint coatings, exposing the base steel to the atmosphere. The deliberate hammering of the floor and sides of the hold by grabs and boulders to free cargo residues trapped between the frame will result in structural damage and breakdown of the paint's coatings.
Sea water corrosion.
In the majority of cases, this will take place in the ballast tanks. Many companies now place sacrificial anodes in the ballast tanks, which considerably reduce the corrosive effect of air and salt water.
Metal fatigue.
The weakening of the steel in structure due to the constant flexing under the repeated cycles of stress may result in structural fatigue failure. Fatigue usually begins at welded joints, notches, discontinuities in structures and areas of high rigidity in particular.
Operational factors.
Corrosion and fatigue will gradually weaken the hull over time. This can be increased by variation in loading patterns and particularly heavy density cargo such as iron ore. Another factor that gradually weakens a ship's structure is the abrasive and corrosive nature of bulk cargoes such as coal, which can cause unintentional damage to cargo hold coatings.
Cathodic protection.
Cathodic protection is a system of preventing corrosion by forcing all surfaces of a structure to be cathodes by providing internal anodes.
Principal mechanisms of ship corrosion. Number 1. Atmospheric corrosion.
Atmospheric corrosion, caused by a combination of high moisture and salt-laden sea spray, both of which directly attack the steel through the smallest deficiencies of the pane layer.
Number 2. Fretting corrosion.
Fretting corrosion caused by the repeated related surface motion between the loaded metal surface, typically induced by vibration caused by machinery and structural flexing caused by sea currents and wind.
Number 3. Galvanic corrosion.
Galvanic corrosion takes place by the two metals forming a parasitic galvanic cell which the sea water acting as electrolyte. This cell's acting causes one of the metals, typically the steel, to oxidize.
Number 4. Stray current corrosion.
The point at which current leaves the ship's hull is prone to stray current corrosion.
Number 5. Crevasse corrosion.
The abundance of sea spray causes water to become trapped and accumulate in crevices, which are formed by silt, sand, marine organisms, structural resources, or sealing materials.
Number 6. Microbial corrosion.
Microbial corrosion is caused by certain types of marine bacteria, which stick to the hull of accumulate in crevices. Their biological activities modifies local chemistry by acid production, thus accelerating corrosion.
Number 7. Internal corrosion.
Internal corrosion takes place in tanks, piping, and pumping equipment in oil tanks.
Which part of the ship are vulnerable to corrosion? Hull and superstructure.
The principal part of the ship vulnerable to corrosion is the hull and superstructure, which are exposed to the elements 24 hours a day.
Engine heat exchanger.
Engine heat exchanger marine engines are typically cooled by a coolant, antifreeze, anti-corrosion mixture circulating in a closed circuit, similarly to modern motor vehicles.
Ballast tanks.
Some ships, especially large cargo ships and oil tankers, have a ballast tanks, which are used to change the weight distribution of the ship or to change its drafts in order to optimize stability.
Corrosion vicious circles. Structural weakening. Ingress of water and dirt causing more corrosion. Ingress of water causing electrical faults. Ingress of water causing flooding. How to stop metal corrosion? Methods of stopping and preventing metal corrosion. Metal corrosion occurs when metal is exposed to moisture and other elements of chemicals. While it is generally a natural process, it can lead to a severe decrease in the functionality and aesthetics of metal products. Whatever your reason for wanting to stop and prevent the corrosion of metals, here are some helpful ways to prevent corrosion of metals. Number 1. Turn to non-corrosive metals such as aluminum and stainless steel. Number 2. Keep the area around the metal surface dry. Number 3. Use drying agents and moisture barrier products. Number 4. Make sure underground piping is laid in a layer of backfill, such as limestone. And the last is make sure any electrical components are cleaned regularly. Additional ways to prevent metal corrosion. Aside from the above suggestions, There are methods of treating metals that can stop the corrosion of metals before it starts. A coating of grease or oil maintained on a metal surface, for instance. Carbon fiber coating to prevent corrosion in metal. Carbon fiber coating is another excellent method of preventing the corrosion of metals. What is corrosion? Corrosion is a process where the metal corrodes. Rusting is the process where an iron corrodes due to exposure to the atmosphere. And I thank you.
Di mo kabaraw sa natulong nga manok. Busy ang balay niya, ikaw kay naghagok.